Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. The Sensex and the Nifty end with marginal losses. Bank stocks, auto stocks decline. Mid-caps outperform the blue chips again. The rupee weakens against the dollar but remains just below the 80 mark. Global stock markets remain sluggish. The European Central Bank looks set to hike policy rates by 75 basis points. Crude oil prices decline to a 7-month low amidst fears of a global slowdown.
The world is going through turbulent changes, and these are not such changes that it affects only some countries and the others are safe.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman flags an uncertain global environment as a key challenge for India at the US-India Business Council's annual summit. Hopes inflation data doesn't spring any more negative surprises. The Union Cabinet cuts the railway land licence fee to 1.5% from 6%. The lease period has also been increased to 35 years. Shares of Container Corporation rally in trade as the move reduces the cost burden. But 1.5% is merely the base. There will be a competitive bidding process. Large parts of Bengaluru remain inundated even as flood waters recede in some areas. Electricity and drinking water supply yet to be restored in many parts. The Met Department predicts more rainfall over the next few days. Murugappa Group makes a comeback to the electric vehicle space with the launch of a new three-wheeler. Plans to launch an electric tractor and a truck, but rules out foraying into the electric two-wheeler market, citing plenty of a crowd already. Insurance regulator mandates selling new policies in demat form starting December this year. Sources say all existing policies will be dematerialized by December 23. That's an exclusive. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi begins a 3,500-kilometer walk across the country over the next 150 days. Meanwhile, AAP leader Arvind Kejriwal launches his new campaign called Make India Number One from Haryana. The government is set to announce new guidelines for social media influencers who endorse brands and products. The guidelines expected in the next 10 days. The head of the Consumer Protection Authority says an influencer must provide disclaimers and be treated as an endorser. Any violation will result in penalties starting from 10 lakh rupees. Well, let's start with the day's market action. It turned out to be a range-bound session on the Lal Street, ending with marginal losses for both the Sensex and the Nifty. Bank stocks led the decline today and auto stocks gave them company. But mid-caps did manage to buck the trend for the second day running. Anuj is standing by now to take us through the day's market action. Anuj, closing in the red and keeping pace with what's happening across global markets.
Well, the Indian market was down but not out, and it's the market which has been very resilient, been the best performing market globally among the big markets. Today also there were a lot of negative cues like the dollar index, what happened to US market, bond yields. Market just ignored all of that. And once again, the key point, the 20-day exponential moving average was once again held today. The Nifty tested it in the morning and then had a very sharp 150-point recovery, more than that actually at one point. So that tells you that the market is strong. In terms of individual stocks, auto stocks did see some profit taking today. So names like Tata Motors, Bajaj, and Maruti, Mahindra and Mahindra were all down. There was some profit taking in some heavyweights like SBI, ICICI Bank, Reliance, and HDFC Bank as well. On the gaining side, cement clearly was the sector of the day. Shree Cement led the move with 7% rally. Big one, Ultratech Cement as well, was up 4.5%. That's the pocket which did well. And a couple of these IT names also managed to bounce back. In the broader market, there were some big gains in names like Concord, Vodafone Idea, Z Entertainment, and then, a couple of others like Astral, etc. also did well. All in all, broader market continues to show strength.
All right, Anuj, many thanks for joining us. And across in the money market, the rupee weakened marginally against the US dollar. The rupee has been declining for the last few days, but it's yet to breach the 80 mark against the greenback again. All major currencies declining against the dollar, which has been gathering strength over the last few weeks. 79.90 is where the rupee closed. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman inaugurated the US-India Business Council's annual summit. Speaking at the event, she flagged an uncertain global economic environment as a key challenge for India. She said that no country is immune from turbulence. The finance minister is hopeful that inflation data won't spring any more negative surprises. She's identified job creation and wealth distribution as the top priorities for the government.
Mutual understanding, particularly at a time when the world is so divided and the world is so engaged in such activities which you think who exactly would want these to happen. But when it is happening, none of us feel empowered enough to stop it. So we are at very severe challenging times, and therefore I would think such engagement at this level will only further strengthen common shared values between India and the US. Inflation is not red-lettered. I hope it doesn't surprise many of you all. We have shown that in the last couple of months, we were able to bring it under some manageable levels.
Well, that's the finance minister speaking about inflation. And staying with that theme, the European Central Bank is poised to deliver its biggest rate hike in 2 decades. A hike of 75 basis points is expected this week as the ECB attempts to tame rising prices. Inflation in the Eurozone hitting 9.7% in August. Crude oil prices declining to 7-month lows on the back of demand concerns and possible global rate hikes. All of that's keeping traders nervous. A marginal cut in production announced by the OPEC nations earlier this week has also done little to stem the fall in prices. Brent crude is trading around $92 per barrel. So that's where crude is currently at. The big story back home, large parts of Bengaluru remain inundated even as flood waters start to recede. Now, in some areas, electricity and drinking water supply is yet to be restored, and that is impacting thousands of people. Flood waters, though, have receded at the busy outer ring road where several large IT companies are situated. However, this relief could be short-lived. The Met Department has forecast heavy rains and thunderstorms in Bengaluru over the next 2 or 3 days. Karnataka's chief minister visited flood-affected areas today along with the civic body officials and local MLAs to assess the situation. All primary and high schools in the east zone of the city have been instructed to remain shut due to heavy waterlogging. Ritu Singh reports from one of the worst impacted areas in Bengaluru.
I'm coming to you from the Bengaluru area of Bangalore, which has been one of the worst impacted because of the incessant rains. What you see behind me is one of the many areas that have been completely submerged in water. We went inside a short while back and the citizens there have been telling us that water suddenly flooded their homes, knee-deep water at 1 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the night, and all they could do is grab their children and just rush to safety. So huge losses faced by them.
छोटा-छोटा बच्चा है, हमारे कर खाने वाले हैं हमें भी हाँ वो पानी दबस आया तो बच्चे को कैसा लाना सामान कैसा लाना हमें हाँ हमारे बोले तो आके में पानी आता है
सामान वामान सब घर पे रहा, हम लोग ऐसे ही निकल गए, ऐसे सो रहा था, सोने का टाइम पानी आ गया। बहुत लोगों को तो पानी पी लिया है, पानी पता ही नहीं चला रूम पे पानी आया बोल के, इतना बुरा हाल था। इधर तक आपका इतना पानी था, पूरा ये साइड पूरा एरिया था, बंद था पूरा। अभी फिलहाल खाना पीना सब लोगों के लिए हम लोग को तकलीफ हो रहा था। 3 या 4 डेज से पावर नहीं है, खाना नहीं है, कुछ भी नहीं है, ऐसे पानी का नीचे है, कोई भी देखने के लिए भी नहीं आता है। नॉर्मल तो आते हैं, आके देख के चला जाते हैं।
गवर्नमेंट का कुछ यहाँ होना चाहिए सपोर्ट, लेकिन अभी तक कुछ गवर्नमेंट सपोर्ट यहाँ पे नहीं किया। बाकी साइड में तो थोड़ा हुआ है, लेकिन यहाँ पे अभी तक कुछ सपोर्ट नहीं हुआ। न पीने का पानी है, न रहने का जगह है, कम से कम वो तो देना चाहिए गवर्नमेंट को। अभी तक यहाँ पे कुछ नहीं हुआ।
बिजली नहीं है, पानी नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है, बहुत दिक्कत में हम लोग है।
मैनेज कर रहे हैं।
हम बगल में हमको खाना दे रहे हैं नेबर लोग।
हाँ, और यहाँ पे कुछ इलेक्ट्रिसिटी
कुछ नहीं 3 दिन से नहीं है, जब से पानी कुछ नहीं है।
And what you see behind me is actually the Bengaluru lake, and the residents here have been telling us that water levels were actually above that bridge that you can see over the last few days. Of course, now they have come down a bit. What this situation and currently in Bangalore has brought to the focus really is the consequences of unplanned urbanization. The civic authorities have already identified illegal encroachments of 500 storm water drains. So that is the kind of consequences that the city has to now suffer. And with predictions of more heavy rainfall over the next few days, it is unlikely that the citizens of this tech city are going to see relief anytime soon. With camera person Manjunath in Bangalore, this is Ritu Singh.
A city struggling, that's the situation across Bengaluru. Now, a quick check of some of the other headlines tonight. The Union Cabinet has cut the railway land licence fee to 1.5% from 6%. The lease period has also been increased to 35 years. Shares of Container Corporation rallied in trade as the move reduces the cost burden and is likely to expedite its strategic sale as well. The Murugappa Group has re-entered the electric vehicle business. The Chennai-based conglomerate has launched its electric scooters in 2008, but it has no plans to make two-wheelers for now. The Murugappa Group company, the Tube Investments of India, has launched an electric three-wheeler under the brand Mantra Electric. Speaking exclusively to CNBC-TV18, Jude Sanith, Arun Murugappan said the two-wheeler market was crowded and the company will focus on three-wheelers. It's also planning to launch an electric truck and a tractor.
2008 it was where we went to electric scooters, and I think we were a little too early for the market itself. Yeah? And coming to it now, after so many years, I mean, electric is the way forward, and we intend to go we formed this platform called TI Clean Mobility, and we'll probably have different platforms, starting with the three-wheeler, the tractor, and then the truck. The initial outlay, we've put about 200 crores in this project, and our capacity today is about 75,000 units per year. Yeah? And any further capacity that when the time comes, we will invest and then go forward from there.
Well, that's the Murugappa Group talking about their electric vehicle plans. The Supreme Court's appointment of Justice P.V. Reddy as a mediator in the share transfer dispute between SpiceJet and its former promoter Kalanthi Maran and his firm Carl Airways. The protracted legal tussle started after Maran transferred his entire shareholding in SpiceJet to the now promoter Ajay Singh. Later, Maran and Carl Airways moved the High Court demanding that SpiceJet transfer the 18 crore warrants redeemable as equity shares to them. Last month, both parties made a joint request to the Apex Court asking for a mediator. Now, the government may announce new guidelines for social media influencers who endorse brands and products within the next 10 days. Nidhi Khare, the chairperson of the Consumer Protection Authority, told my colleague Timsy Jaipuria that an influencer must provide disclaimers and will be treated as an endorser. She said any violation will result in penalties starting from as steep as 10 lakh rupees.
As we all know that CCPA issued guidelines on the misleading advertisements and also how to prevent such misleading advertisements. We already have covered the endorsers. However, we felt that in today's digital world, there are a lot of social influencers who are also acting and who are also basically involved in advertising of a product or a service. They also their role also needs to be delineated, and they also need to be brought under this aspect. So we are working on bringing say guidelines for these social influencers so that it serves as a guidance to the social influencers to understand how they can be on the wrong side of the law if they do not fulfill or they do not comply with certain instructions.
Ma'am, when you say that the guidelines are still in works and they'll be announced shortly, what could be the salient features? Because social media influencers are similar to brand endorsers, brand ambassadors. How would you try to point out some salient features?
So, for example, in a when a celebrity is actually endorsing any product, the consumer actually knows that the celebrity has been employed to make these endorsements, and they understand that there is a commercial say relationship between the manufacturer or the advertising agency and the celebrity. But in a social influencer sector, the consumers are very, very gullible, and they are not able to make out whether this is an innocent say review or is it just maybe it has been said something just as a passing reference, or whether there is a pattern, or whether there is a commercial relationship between the social influencer and the advertising agency. So what we are thinking of is that in order to beware the consumers from following every advice that the social influencer is giving, there has to be a disclosure, self-disclosure by the social influencer, with regards to whatever products he's talking about, whether he shares a commercial relationship with the advertising agency or with the manufacturer or the trading marketing company.
So the self-disclosure will have to be visible on the video, also in the description saying that this is a paid promotion or a paid review?
Exactly. So this should be a disclosure which can be very easily discerned by the consumers. So we are working on that, how to make sure that the consumer understands that there is a commercial relationship into what he's talking about a certain product.
What about penalties and penal provisions? Because what if an influencer is unable to meet the guidelines or the law that you are still in works?
So he'll be treated like an endorser, and under the CP Act, it is very clear that if it is a misleading advertisement and it amounts to violation of consumer rights, or if it amounts to unfair trade practice, then nationally the same penal provisions will apply to a social influencer as well.
What is the quantum of the penalty?
So for the first offense, it could be as high as say 10 lakhs, depending on the kind of influence that he's been able to make. And for any subsequent, it can be up to 50 lakhs. There can also be an order of restraining the endorser from making any such endorsements for, say, from a period of 1 year to 3 years.
How will you monitor, or how will you see that these disclaimers are coming out? Or because social media is such a wide base, so many influencers posting videos, reviews at the same time, it's an endless space, to be precise. How will you monitor these reviews?
So we are thinking of bringing in some technological tools which are available today, which can crawl into these the digital creations, and then depending on these violations, such incidents can be reported.
Well, that is the chairperson of the CCPA saying that they are going to be putting out guidelines to monitor and rein in social media influencers. Penalties could be as high as 10 to 50 lakh rupees for any violation. Now, we will need to see the fine print. She didn't tell us who would qualify as an influencer necessarily. Is it tagged to a number of followers, etc.? And potentially, what kind of violations are we talking about? If disclosure is not made, is that going to lead to a penalty of 10 lakh rupees or more? Well, we'll have to wait to see the fine print when those draft guidelines are released by the CCPA. We will head into a break, but up next, the tech giant Apple is all set to reveal a new range of products, including the much anticipated iPhone 14 later today. That and more when we return.